Hey, everybody, and welcome. This is SAPPHIRE Ed with Sapphire Technologies, and you're listening to number 5 of the Sapphire Nation podcast. And joining us today from EPOS is Andreas Jessen. Andreas, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's actually Jessen, but
Okay, well,
almost.
I screwed it up already. There we go.
No, I mean Google will autocorrect it to Jensen also when I try. So it's you're not the first one.
Okay, and so why don't you tell everybody first who is EPOS? This is a big thing that's happening right now for you guys. So let's start there.
Yeah. So EPOS is this new company we're setting up, but we've been around for a long time. So it doesn't it's not something we're building from the ground, but it's a new direction we're taking. So we've been we've been part of the company called Sennheiser Communications for a lot of years now, and we've been putting a product to the market under the Sennheiser brand for many years, all related to gaming. And as we announced last year, Sennheiser Communications was a joint venture between Sennheiser, which was the brand that the consumer saw in the retail, and in a company called Demand, which I think is a little bit more unknown to the general public, but it is one of the world leading hearing aid companies in the world, and have a lot of companies associated with hearing, so diagnostics of hearing, hearing aid equipment, stuff like that. And as this joint venture was decided to demerge, we said, okay, Sennheiser will take back what we used to call mobile music, so everything related to you can say listening to music in the commuting and stuff like that. And EPOS will take over the two segments called gaming and enterprise. And enterprise, you have to think of like call centers, working in the office, that kind of headsets. And gaming, well, I don't think I need to explain that, but that's everything related to someone playing a video game. So so that was the split up. So it's super exciting to now be. I mean, we've always been on our own feet, but now we're really on our own feet, and we have to learn a lot from the beginning, because we, of course, we're leaning on these two mother companies. Um, yeah, but it's super exciting, what will happen in the
We
future.
see. I think it's exciting, and we need to make sure. We said exciting a lot there. There we go. I do think it's exciting, but we need to make sure people understand. EPOS is not a new company coming on the market. This is just basically an existing great product company rebranding. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
yeah, you can say that. I mean, we have the same several hundred people employed here as we did 2 years ago. So nothing in that sense is changing. There's something in our setup, of course, that is changing, because we used to be a lot closer to Sennheiser. That's now demerging. But yeah, no, the company, as I have been part of for many years, also before EPOS, that was called Sennheiser Communications. That company has essentially existed since 2003, and it's that entity that's now transforming into to some part of it is transforming into EPOS, and some part of it is going back to Sennheiser.
Awesome. Andreas, what's your role in EPOS?
So my role, I joined the company, I think, 6 years ago. I was in product management, and the day I started was actually the day that they decided to have gaming as its separate segment. So not just have, you can have a consumer segment, and then under that you can have travel, and you can have TV listening, and you can have gaming. But we decided to have a separate segment called gaming to really focus on it, and that's been a keystone in the last 6 years I've been working at the company. That uh, focus is what generates great products, and focus is what generates, meaningful innovation in the market. So that's when I started 6 years ago. Gaming was a separate segment. Then over the time of these 6 years, I became the official title is Senior Director of Product Management and Marketing, and that's the position I hold today now. So I'm very much involved with every new product that that comes to the market. But I'm also involved in some of the marketing campaigns we're running.
That's very cool. Um, I'm trying to think where to start because there's so many places I want to go with this. Sound is something that doesn't get discussed a lot. Um, I think
No, yeah.
I think part of that is, and tell me if your impression from your end is thinks I'm wrong. Development in hardware for sound has pretty much stagnated over the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, I think and to be fair, there's been some real big improvement in the visuals, and that has of course meant that it's there's been a lot of focus on it. I mean, I think lately with ray tracing and stuff like that, some of those things look completely amazing. I agree with you. There's maybe not been huge innovations or huge changes in audio, but I think that it still deserves more focus than it gets in the entirety of the experience of gaming. I think there's a lot of people that when they try great audio, find new layers in their game, and sort of that's at least the discussion we would like to take. So no, yeah, I agree that audio sort of have been a little bit under prioritized, especially with. I mean, give me a good example. We've been doing analog headsets for a long time. Today we also have digital headsets, wireless headsets. We do DACS, etc. But for a long time we did analog headsets, and we got a lot of feedback saying I have static noise on my microphone. I have a crosstalk. I have dropouts on the speaker path. And the more we looked into it, the more we saw that a lot of these issues came from. Sorry if there's some noise there. They came from badly shielded cables in cabinets. They came from plugs that was not designed to be shielded enough for EMC because these PCs was growing bigger and bigger. You know, power supply units was having more watts. Graphical cards was having more watts, and you still have milliwatts running out on your audio signal. And if that is not shielded in a proper way, then you get more and more disturbance on your audio. So stuff like that show that there could be more priority on the audio because they were coming quality through on some PCs or some motherboards that I would say was below the standard that you would expect.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. For a long time, to get good audio for a game, we had to have a discrete sound card, and that existed for a long time. But then I've watched and Gigabyte was the first company to really push this with their motherboards. They actually pushed out motherboards that you could replace the DAC and change the sound signatures, which was really cool. But then you watch gaming motherboards got better and better. They got good DACs, they got good amplifiers to be able to drive
Mm-hmm,
better
mm-hmm.
quality headphones. You saw the discrete sound card begin to disappear, and it's really begun to disappear from the industry. Now we're seeing external sound cards like your 300, which I
Mm-hmm.
believe you guys just announced.
Yeah.
We're also seeing bigger amp DACs just for headphones come out. Where do we stand on this right now? Do you think the typical gamer is on board enough, or do they really need these external solutions to get the most out of their sound quality?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the if we go back one step, I think the mindset of the gamers are changing a little bit because what is good enough, yeah, that depends on who you are and what you want, right? And I agree with you that some of these discrete DACs and some of the motherboard solutions, I mean, they're doing great stuff. What we're seeing is that sometimes, the motherboard is designed as a motherboard, the graphics card is designed as a graphic card, the power supply unit as a power supply unit. But when you do electronics with extremely low signals as we do, you have to look at the whole thing as a system. And maybe that's the reason we're seeing more of these external sound cards coming out because when you jam more high power components into smaller and smaller cases, and none of these components, well, in some cases they do, but in many cases they don't. They are coming from different companies that not necessarily look at it as a combined system. so at least that was that's our motivation to do some of these DACs, sort of just to make sure it was in a controlled environment, and we could guarantee that even though it's a very low watt signal, that it's still high quality. I don't know if I can directly say if it's good enough or not good enough. I think that if you value audio, and it's something that's, you're listening after the details, and you are, some people can have a analog headset and have distortion and noise coming every 10 seconds and never notice it, and some people will notice it every time and go crazy over it. So if you're more in the second category, then I guess that you'll do a lot more to get that really crisp audio. And that might mean getting an external DAC as the one we've just launched.
Now
I would
that's
say there's more to it than just the clean signal. There are also some DSP processing and stuff like that you get it with some of these options.
I think that you've made a very important point. Audio is very personalized. In fact, ridiculously personalized, much more so than most people believe it is. You can't, for example, say a headset is a headset is a headset is a headset, because there are so many different factors that come into play for just the sound. The sound
Yeah.
signaturing of the headset, the way the headset fits to the head, the distance from the actual sound source and the ears, and so
And remember that audio is something you learn over your life. It's not. I mean, it's not something that has, that you've just born with, like a reflex. When you're a small child, you can't locate any sound in a room because your brain hasn't learned, where does this sound mean? Where should I look when I hear this kind of audio and stuff like that? And I really believe that as you also say, everybody has different stories, and we did test with people that did not super heavy gamers, but where we said like stereo versus surround sound, what gives you the best uh, feeling. And then we did the same test with really high-end gamers like CS:GO gamers who've been gaming for a long time, and it was two different results because the CS:GO gamers had been playing stereo the whole life, and that was the brain was completely tuned in to listen to stereo. So when they got surround sound, well, it just messed up what their brain thought it was listening for. And the other way around, when we gave the other guys, not so heavy gamers, they put easier locate audio with surround sound versus stereo. So it is very personal, also depending on what you have been what you've been playing and what you've been doing.
and it's also important to note that your taste change. This is something that evolves as you get older, as your hearing changes as you get older.
Mm.
You're going to have different tonal qualities are easier or harder to hear.
Yeah,
You're going to have volume level differences that you have to hit.
definitely. I mean, the second you're born, right, your hearing starts to deteriorate, and then depending on how many concerts you want to go to in your life, or how many jet engines you want to stand next to, that it just goes faster and faster, and that's something we actually can notice. It's actually still a big stigma, this audio loss and using a hearing aid and stuff like that. But that's the one thing I can probably guarantee everybody is that your hearing will start to deteriorate over time, and I think everybody have seen this, on a lot of these audio boxes and headsets, and that's actually one of the things I think is a really big misunderstanding in the audio segment, that a lot of manufacturers will put like our headset plays 0 to 20,000 hertz, and first of all, it doesn't mention at what volume it plays the
Right.
different ranges and stuff like that. So it's a complete, like, it can be, we play our headset can reproduce audio at 18,000 hertz, but it's only a dog that can hear it or something like that. So it doesn't really make sense. And the other thing is that, the older your target group is, or let's say that if you're 40 or 50, well, then you don't, it's not 20,000 hertz anymore. And I'm sorry to say it's not, and hopefully it's not a surprise, but it's just, it deteriorates over time. And that can be that can be reasons why you want to EQ something, because you want to maybe push some of these 8, 9, 10 kilohertz signals, because you want to have the same crisp feeling of a forest or of birds singing, stuff like that. And so it is something that will change throughout your life. And and I think I don't use glasses myself, but I imagine it the same thing as as this as this boiling frog example. Like you put a frog in water, and you slowly heat it up, and it won't jump out because it doesn't detect the change quickly enough. So it'll just sit there until it boils. And the same thing I think is with audio and your eyes, that like, you can slowly deteriorate, and then suddenly you get your glasses and you see everything in HD again, or you get good audio and you hear everything like it's supposed to be.
There,
Yeah. So
there you go. Now I know some people are wanting us to. We're not going to, by the way, discuss speakers versus headsets. Not going to dive into that because you guys don't make speakers, and that's not
no,
fair.
but I think no, yeah, but I think it's a good discussion to have because it's you of course you can never do a speaker signal with a headphone, and there's a few reasons for that. But actually, I think it's important when you do headphones or headsets like we do that you understand the differences between a speaker and a headphone. I mean, both of them are good, and both of them are uh, so, fits different needs. One of the few things I don't think a lot of people realize for audio is that audio is actually not you have two ears. I think most people know that, but you don't use only your ears for listening to audio. So when you've been to a rock concert, or you've been in places like at the beach where the waves are rolling in, it's just not the same when you go home and put on a headphone and listen to that. And part of that reason is that a lot of the audio you hear is actually also body impact. So there will be, especially in the low frequencies, will be transferred through your body and give this full feeling. And that's actually also why you have what we call color in headsets, because we can't give that body impact when you're wearing a headset, that's for sure, but we can give a sensation of that's extremely close to that feeling. So there are some differences between it. On the other side, when it comes to surround sound, I I will make the claim that you can actually get a more precise and high quality surround sound from a pair of headphones than you can from a speaker setup. Um, and that's something to do with when we create a surround sound for a headphone. I can tell within millimeters how far there is from the eardrum to our speaker. Whereas when you do the same thing in a speaker setup, it's meters, or uh, best case you've actually set the speakers up as the Dolby prescription are. Worst case you moved around them a little bit because it's suited better to your living room. So so actually there's a good argument to be said that surround sound headphones is a superior way of doing surround sound.
Well, now we're going to dive into some specifics on headphones, but let's circle back then for a minute. There was I want to say fad. I'm not sure that's an exactly correct word. There was a
Hmm.
fad for a while back for, I'm using air quotes, surround sound headphones, where they actually put multiple speakers in the headphones. That just never worked out. Was that just unnecessary? Was it technologically unsound? I mean, what happened?
Well, I have strong personal beliefs on why that was a really silly thing to do. But let me try and start a place where at least we can agree it was a silly thing to do. Um,
Okay.
so 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 how do we detect where audio comes from? That's a really essential question. And a lot of people have this idea that well you can't make surrounds on a headphone because you only have two speakers. And one of my arguments is that, yeah, we only have two microphones also. So that's not the deal breaker. The way our brain detects spatial audio is by a lot of cues that it's learned over a long time. So, for example, when you grew up and your mother said your name and you listened to that 1,000 times and you moved and saw, okay, when you say it like that, she's over there. Then your brain slowly learns. And a lot of these things we call audio cues. And the two most important ones for your brain to understand spatialness is time difference between your ears. So, meaning if a signal reaches your right ear milliseconds before it reaches your left ear, your brain will say, okay, it's probably coming from your right side. and then it's level difference. And that's, again, if it's a little bit loud on your right ear and a little less loud in your left ear. Then there's a ton of other cues. For example, if you've noticed, but your humans have really like big meaty ears. So it's not just a hole. There's like a whole pinna and everything.
Right.
And that actually means that if sound is coming from behind, it has to travel around that ear, around that pinna, which makes it a little bit more muffled. And that's a cue your brain uses to determine, okay, it's probably coming from behind me. So there's all these cues that it uses. But what is important that here is that if a signal is not heard in both ears, then it doesn't make sense. Because it's the time difference. It has to be left-right signal and then a time difference, or left-right and a level difference. So putting more speakers in one cup is somewhat, in my opinion, silly, because the other ear can't hear it anyway.
Right.
And that's my whole point with it. It from a logical point of view, from a communications point of view, I get it. I mean, it's easier to market a product that is 5.1 if I have 5 speakers. From a technological point of view, it doesn't make sense.
Well, even with speakers, to me, it never made sense because, as you pointed out, most people, because of the nature of the way their room is set up, cannot effectively set up a surround sound system.
I mean, it's hard, and there are some tuning mechanisms, right? Some systems have like a microphone you can put out and will do like a tuning and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. It can be tricky.
For computer speakers, it gets crazy.
Yeah.
Because you want the 2 front speakers close to you. Let's say we're doing a 4.1. You want the 2 front speakers close to you. Now you need the 2 rear speakers. Technically, they're supposed to be equidistant behind you from the front speakers. Well, that means you've usually got these. I remember Cambridge Soundworks back in the day when they did the first 4.1, and they came with these little flimsy plastic stands. And you were supposed to position them behind you to do this. Well, that was really cool, but it meant you were putting them up and taking them down if you were in the living room because it just looked stupid, or you were bumping into them, and it was always such a nightmare to have to deal with a true surround sound system. And I have found over the years a good headphone headset is just as good, if not better.
It's there's when it comes to surround sound, there's definitely been some development in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years that's pushed surround sound headphones. Now, the technology, the mathematics behind it is actually a lot older. But running or rendering 7 signals into a binaural signal requires a lot of energy, CPU power, and running that on a PC 15 years ago would have not been possible. So I think that's also what's been pushing surround sound a little bit more on the PC now, that we actually have the power to do something and to do something that sounds good, and we can add more cues and we can actually make a very convincing surround sound image for your brain to interpret. So I think that's also a part of the story, right? It's now, so it seems like it's converging to like, okay, it's 2 speakers, it's a headphone, and it's some sort of spatial rendering. I think everybody knows that is surround sound now. So on a headphone. So yeah.
Okay, next question about headphones. Open versus close back.
Well, my preference is definitely open back. I don't like it if I'm sitting in the metro for obvious reasons. but if it's a gaming scenario, I'm sitting at home. I only see upside to using an open headset. Like I have a girlfriend. There's 2 kids in the apartment. I'd like to know if the apartment's on fire. That's nice. That's a nice to know information. So like having a little bit of awareness of what's going on is good, and that your open back gives you that. In terms of audio quality, it's I can't draw now. Normally I would go to a whiteboard and draw, but an open back gives you a little bit more natural sound reproduction because you don't have this forced reverb that goes on inside an ear cup if you have a closed acoustic headset, right? So imagine you have a speaker and that speaker has a back plate and it's shielded inside an ear cup, and then it plays audio, a sound. That sound is, of course, shot into your ear and hits your eardrum, and you hear it. But some part of that audio is also reflected back, and then it hits the back of the ear cup and is reflected back again. So you get this sort of late echo effect or late reverb effect, which is essentially what you know is the headphone. Like you're listening to a headphone because you have this sort of um, occlusion or reverb effect of the headset. And if you have an open back, you allow much more of those reflections to escape from your ear, from your headphone, which gives you a little bit more natural feeling. So that for me, it's definitely open back.
Well, I was going to
Um,
say my suggestion to people is always this: if you're at home or you are in a quiet environment where there aren't a lot of people around you, there's not a lot of noise around
mm,
you, open back 100%. I wouldn't touch a closed back headset in an environment like that. But
no.
if you're going to go to a LAN party where you've got 300 screaming gamers, if you try to use an open back headset, you will never hear your game.
No, no, you're out. I mean, and to be fair, now I said I wanted open so I can hear my family, but I definitely also understand the argument of the opposite argument. If you want to sit and play a PlayStation and you don't want to listen to your family, yeah, yeah.
or
There's
or your
there's
computer's in the bedroom and your wife at 3 in the morning's looking at you because she can hear the gunfire through the open back headphones.
yeah, yeah. I don't think that will ever be allowed in mine, but yeah, it sounds like a good scenario also.
There you go, guys. Open back versus closed back. I think we just solved that question real quick. Um, how long has, because I don't think many people know that Sennheiser was involved for a long time and I think they still are in professional level microphones. I'm talking even stage quality. Um, how long has Sennheiser been in the microphone business?
Yeah, so I think I'm not actually allowed to talk about Sennheiser anymore. But on the other hand, it
Well,
doesn't make sense because I'm not affiliated with Sennheiser per
the
se.
the reason
Um,
I was asking that is one factor every reviewer that has ever looked
hmm
at any of the headsets you produce is you produce the best stop period microphone on a headset in gaming right now. And
Oh, so yes, okay. So you think about the link to the
yeah, because there's a
entertainment stage, broadcast, that kind of.
right,
hmm Well, there's I think there's two things to this. One is your manufacturing discipline. That's one side of it, and the other side is an understanding of what is good audio, what is good microphone performance. So on the first one, of course, there's on the you can say manufacturing discipline. There's a whole long story about how do you ensure like every single capsule sounds the same way. How do you end test every single product before it leaves? Because some of these products, they're not digital products. This is not software. You're just, if you click a button, it doesn't just make another one.
right,
Every single one of them can have small defects, can have, you know, can be tuned in the wrong way. Glue
right.
can be put in the wrong place. So that's one thing. The other thing is knowing what good audio is, and that's a whole ball game of understanding your like noise floor and understanding what do we want to bring in, what is because if you look at these musicians, they'll say I really like this microphone because I really sound good in that, because that then they also know they're acknowledging there's some sort of color on any product out there, like they will change it will change your voice in some way, and understanding where you can change that adds quality, and where you can change in the spectrum because it just makes it sound crappy. That's something, of course, we've been using the last 20 years learning more about. That's something that our new only mother company Demand has been doing for more than 100 years. I think it's at 90 years there or something. They've been doing this. So that's a long heritage of just understanding audio and being better at it, in that sense. And then I think I don't know why I looked this up the other day, but the dynamic speaker was invented by a Danish guy in I think it was 1917, Peter Jensen. So it seems like there's also in some sort of like audio tech cluster in Copenhagen and Denmark, for so that's stayed around for almost 100 years. So that's also it takes time to build up understanding and quality in that sense.
By the way, anybody that's listening live, if you've got questions, go up to the listener questions section, type them in. We're going to get to those in just a minute and start diving into those. Um, I wanted to give you, Andreas, my impressions. You guys have let me play with quite a few of your headsets, and I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. In fact, this was a couple of years ago. I got sent one of the first Game Zeros, and I don't know if you knew this. The first run of Game Zeros were 150 ohm
Yeah,
impedance.
yeah, no, I know.
And that has driven me nuts ever since because it's really hard when I travel to make those work right. But specifically, the two I've really been comparing here lately have been the Game 1 and the GSP 500
Mm-hmm.
because they're both open back. They're at a similar price point. And I'm finding some interesting things here, and I want to see what you guys think of this feedback and how it compares to what you've heard in your company.
Yeah.
Um, I find the Game 1 much more comfortable. It's very lightweight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the styling is simpler, cleaner. But I found that the GSP 500 has a richer sound, and I'm kind of wondering what changed to make the sound richer.
Mm-hmm. It's a well, first of all, you're right. It is lighter, so that's for sure. When we designed the GSP 500, so weight is always a balance between how I mean, if you, it's oh you can have a little bit heavy headset if you have a good balanced clamping force. So it doesn't it doesn't hang on your head, but it actually hangs on your side because it clamps in a little bit more. And that was what we're going for with the GSP 500. That being said, different like there's like around 6 or 7 billion different heads in the world, and it will sit differently on different people. That's for sure. Um, on the styling, yes, I agree. The Game One is a much more played down design. We wanted to maybe go a little bit more boldly into gaming and not just dip our toes. And we didn't really want to have the whole LED Tron like
Thank you.
experience, but we did want to throw some colors in there and say, okay, we are actually into gaming, and we are committing to this. We're not just standing on the outside. And yeah, but design always, of course, becomes a bit of um, a talk about taste, and yeah, that's always interesting.
As
On the last point, when I had the Game One, and this was actually one of my first projects 5 years ago. Um, the challenge sometimes with open back headsets is that because all the audio disappears, as I talked about before, it can escape, it can vent out,
right.
but that also means it's extremely hard to build up power in the headset, and especially low frequency audio can be hard to get a good sensation off when you have an open back headset. So that was one of the issues we mainly focused on for the GSP 500. And there's different ways you can do that. You can have a heavier voice coil. You can have a little bit more powerful magnet and stuff like that. And all the time when you make these settings, you have to remember you can't destroy other parts of it. I mean, the mid range is extremely important when gaming, and that's the area where you also have a lot of the voices. So if we suddenly make a change in the low end and we accidentally destroy something in the mid range, and then all of a sudden someone you know really well, could be your mother, starts to sound different because we colored it wrongly or something like that. But that is what changed. That it was a completely new speaker system in the GSP 500. It had a heavier voice coil. It also had a more powerful speaker, so we could give a little bit more energy when it came to everything. I would say somewhere below 400 to 700 hertz, and that allowed us to make it a little bit more lively, a little bit more natural, like as we like it.
It is there a proper way to break in a headset? Because like you
I've
said,
seen this. Yeah, yeah. I've seen a lot of these guys doing, like, you can go to YouTube and you can find like a 10-hour video that'll play and stuff like that.
No, I'm sorry, that wasn't what I meant.
Okay.
I meant with the clamping force. Over time, the clamping force will. For me, I've got a bigger head. Okay, I'm a bigger guy,
Mm-hmm.
and over time, the clamping force will diminish a little bit because the headset will break into my head.
Yeah.
Is there a proper way? Because I've watched people on YouTube grab these things and twist them and expand them and just. Is there a way to break them in a little faster, or is it just a matter of time? It's just going to
No,
take
I
a
mean
little time.
I have used like just a range of books, put them together and let it sit a few nights over. If it's too tight, that will do a lot for it. So
That's an
so
awesome tip. I like that.
yeah, because you just need. I mean, some of these materials have a little bit of memory, and you just sort of need to go above that. And you can either wear it for a really long time, or you can take 3 or 4 books depending on your head size, put it over, let it be over a weekend or something like that. And I promise you, it's a lot. A lot of that will have disappeared. Then, just important, don't do it if you want to give it to your little brother who have a smaller head or something like that, because you can't go the other way really. That's a little bit of the trick.
Now, I do love one feature you guys have done, and I hope this carries forward with the Game Zero and Game One, and with the GSP
Hmm.
300 and 600. They use the same latching system for the pads on the ear cups, which means the ear cups padding are interchangeable. You see, I'm a big leatherette fan. I'm not a
Hmm.
fan of the material padding. And I love the fact that it's easy for me to change this. I've changed this, by the way, on my 500 and my Game Zero. I took off the material padding. I got the leatherette padding with memory foam for the higher end ones, and or for the closed back ones, and put that on instead. That's a wonderful feature. Is that going to continue going forward, where those two different models will always have that interchangeability?
Yeah. So that's the short answer. But no, I
I
actually
know, I know,
I
it's hard to give a specific. I know.
no, but so in general, I would say the ear pads are wear and tear parts, especially if you're a gamer and you use, if you take 20 hours per week, and we have customers who do that, then at some point the ear pads are gonna be worn down. We can't. I mean, we can't. It wouldn't make sense to do ear pads out of steel or something like that. So
Right.
we of course make them out of soft materials, protein leathers, or it can be leather red, it can be velour, it can be fabrics. But we want to go for something that's breathable, something that's it cannot it has to resist alcohol tests. So meaning we'll spray alcohol and see that doesn't color, can't come off. So there are all these requirements we have to the materials we put on. But unfortunately, that also means that it won't last for 10 years because it's living in a pretty harsh environment. There's
Right.
there's sweat, you don't wash it, all these things, and that's why we really want to make sure that well, if the earpad breaks, you're not supposed to buy a new headset. Of course, you can buy a new set of earpads, and then you're good to go again. So that's pretty close to our DNA, because if you want to do something that's a little bit in the high end in terms of cost, and that is what we do, then I think you also have an obligation to make sure that actually people can use it for a long time,
What
because
about
otherwise
the
you feel a little bit betrayed.
banding pad? Because I've never seen replacements for those.
On the
The top
headband,
of
you
the
mean?
headband, right?
Yeah, we have gotten a few requests for that. Not nearly as many as on the earpads. That's for sure. What we have a little bit in the future, and where we're going here, is more in the terms of making it more easy to clean, and then it doesn't need to be the same soft material. You're not touching it. I mean, unless you're bold, you're not touching it on your skin, so it doesn't need to be this super soft material. Most people have like set up some hair over it, but it also lives a pretty rough life up there, because you have hair products. And one thing, we did a study which was really like eye-opening to me. But if a lot of females, when they not all, but a lot in our study, when they take on the headset, they'll use the headband sort of as I'm lacking the English word here, like like a hairband. So
Okay.
they'll take the headband to their forehead and then scoop it up so the hair is pushed back, right?
Right.
And that just means that foundation and makeup would be put into these materials, and they would look really bad over time. So we've been looking into ways of, okay, how do we actually do something that even if you do that, it's possible to have a headset even after, even after the first 3 months. So there's a lot of challenges in that, and there's tons of different use cases and tons of different ways people use a headset that we're getting smarter every day. That's for sure.
Well, I
But
love the
but 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 you're right. We don't have right today a replaceable headband pad.
I love the longevity approach. I love the fact that you're not looking at and saying, yeah, in 4 or 5 years, we want you to buy a new headset. You're saying, how do we make sure you've got that life? That to me is amazing to the
Well,
consumer.
to be honest, I do want you to buy a new headset at some point, but I want you to buy it because we've done something new and that's cool. I don't want you to buy it because the old one broke. That's sort of then it becomes an annoying interaction every time we meet. So it's just on us to do something that's new and exciting, and then hopefully you'll come back and buy a new headset, right?
All right. Well, let's get to a few of these questions here. We've got a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Competisa, comp. We'll just say comp because I'm not going to pronounce that right. Had already asked, but I think this is a good question. With your product line, you're a casual gamer. What do you think is the sweet spot for the sound setup? Onboard versus DAC? What headset?
Well, so I now we talked about the Game One just before. I think that's still an awesome headset. It's comfortable. It clicks all the points. Well, you can live without if you're a casual gamer. I say and think you are okay with stereo and you have a decent setup at home. I think you can run with the Game One as a good starting point um, for gaming setup. I would always recommend as soon as if you want to dig a little bit more into audio and maybe you want to, play around with an equalizer. Maybe you want to see if surround sound what it actually does to a game. Then I would recommend the GSX 300 as an upgrade to that. So that would be a good like 1-2 punch. Like the Game One, see if you really if audio does something great to you by buying a Game One, then consider upgrading to the GSX 300.
Well, now where does the GSP 300 then fit in the lineup?
Well, I think that can also be used. I think if you are, a little bit more, I would say not hardcore, but core gamer, and maybe you go to a few lands, maybe you're out and about because it is closed acoustic. It's a little bit lower price point, so maybe you're not gaming as much. Maybe you're just dipping your toes in gaming. That's a good place to start.
But this raises an interesting question then. Why is it that every time you look at a lower end or mid-range price, $100 or less, gaming headset, they're all closed back. Nobody did an open back.
I think there's a lot of if you put two headsets next to each other in a shop, and you ask people which one do you like the most, and you make sure one of them plays 2 dB louder than the other one, 99% will pick the one that plays the loudest. That has nothing to do with quality. It has nothing to do with experience. It's just like intuition. I think this one because it's louder.
Yeah, we've got
And
a. There's a couple of major brands that's their only claim to fame.
yeah, and I think it's in short term, like if you do 10 minutes, okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't want to neglect it either because it's fun and it gives them sort of like uh, cool experience. And one of the things that also works here is a good bass response. A good, really overdone bass response will give you a lot of, have this fun sensation for a short time. And you can't do that in the open back. So I think that's like part of the story why a lot of people are picking a close back because then you get the option to really crank up the bass easily. It's easy to do bass in a close back. It's challenging to do it in an open back. So that could be part of the explanation.
Now, I tell you why that puzzles me that you say that. Well,
Mhm.
and I know it's me personally. I know it's not the norm. I hear everybody always saying that. Oh, bass is so much better in a closed back. Yet when I wear an open back
Well, not
headphone or
not
headset,
better, but higher.
well, I think the bass sounds better. I use a lot of when I test headsets and headphones,
Hmm.
I use a cappella music,
Hmm.
and I listen for that voice separation. And one of the things I always listen for is how clearly you can hear the bass noting,
Hmm.
because that's usually the hardest thing to separate out. And I have found with open back, I have a much easier time finding it, even at the same volume levels. So, like I
Yeah.
said, maybe that's just me.
Well, I mean, bass is something we, of course, in my mind, when I say bass, I have a very specific spectrum in my mind. So that's like 200-300 hertz below, and mainly below that. I would say bass and a cappella would go higher than that. So there's just so we're comparing apples to pears here. But I agree with you that you don't need a close back to do good bass and good separation of audio. I'm just saying that if you want to have this oomph or this boomy effect, and you want to make it quick, then it's easier to do in a close back. I would still always prefer to have an open back, and I would say be careful if you pick a headset that has too much on the low end, because yes, it sounds fun and I completely recognize that, but your brain is designed so that if it hears something that doesn't sound like it's supposed to be, let me give you an example. If you're standing next to someone having a conversation, but they're right outside of where you can actually hear them, then your brain has to work really. You can hear them, but it tires you to hear them because your brain is working overtime to fill
Right.
in all the blanks that you don't hear. The same thing actually goes with, you can say, a bad headset or a headset that overly compensates in some areas. That your brain is trying to like compensate back again, and that really puts your brain on overtime, and we call that listener's fatigue. That over time you'll feel like, oh, I'm tired, or if this is really this is really frustrating to listen to over time. And then when you get the good headphone or the good audio experience, you'll realize, okay, I can listen to this for hours, and it just, I can relax more when listening. It's something that's hard to put numbers or a finger on, but that is, for example, what happens if you have an overly exaggerated bass response in some headsets.
All right. So we've had two people comment on this. Let's get your
Mhm.
take. What is a video game that really did it for you with sound?
Oh, that's a good. I mean, okay, there's two ways to answer that. So, I really think if you go like hardcore, being the one like, doing the right recordings, having all the right audio files. I think um, DICE Studios in Stockholm, and then the Battlefield One, for example. That's just it's really good audio. And I would say, okay, maybe a close second, like Red Dead Redemption 2 from Rockstar. That's also amazing. But at the end of the day, it's just not just, but it's they can throw a lot of resources at going out, making the recordings, getting all this stuff done. There's also video companies that I think do an amazing job with creating atmosphere with audio. Um, and one of it could be games like I played this Inside. Do you know this Inside game, which is like a 2D a game, or
No, I
what do you
haven't.
call
I
them?
haven't seen that.
Okay, but it's like almost in contrast, the whole game, and the audio is really good. um, I played a game called This War of Mine, I think was called. This is a really cool game with
Yes, I
it's a
know that
guy
one.
from
That one I know.
yeah, yeah, and the audio there just makes it goes right to your spine, I think, and it's like really depressing. But I mean, the game is supposed to be a little bit depressing, so in that sense, they succeeded. So some of that, so I think that's a game. Those are games that, in each their way, really take audio to a good level. One of them is like representing reality, Red Dead Redemption, Battlefield One, and the other one is like being a little bit artistic with the audio and giving you a great experience.
To me, the two games that always have defined what great audio should be in a game were the original Thief and Thief 2 games. They
I've never played them, but they are. But yeah,
they audio was more important than visuals to play the game
that's
well,
cool.
because it was, you were truly a thief. You had to sneak. You
Yeah.
had to learn to listen for audio cues, like when a floor creaked and stuff like that. And it was one of the best uses of positional audio I've ever heard. It was just light years at the time ahead of everyone else. Just amazing how much better it was than everyone else. And I remember when the new Thief came out, when they remade it. Oh, I was so excited for the audio when we got the game, and I wanted to
Hmm.
cry
Oh.
because that experience wasn't there. Now you'd mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm actually playing it finally for the first time this weekend. I really got into it. And I got to agree with you, from a real world perspective, their audio implementation is amazing.
Mm.
I wish it was a little less buggy, but the audio
Uh,
implementation was amazing.
but it's a huge company, and they never do anything like halfway.
Right.
So I also feel like it's hard to compete with like an indie company or smaller studio with that kind of muscle. So yes, it's super good, but I also expected it to be. So I wasn't surprised in that sense.
Um,
That they had great audio and great visuals and great storytelling. But yeah.
Sir Pock brought up a question. Now, this is going to be very specific for you because it's going to apply to your external sound solutions and your wireless
Hmm.
headsets. Um, how is the quality of sound comparatively between Windows and Linux when using these devices?
That is a really good question, and I might also come to short on that. But in general, we say our devices support Windows 10, and we do get from time to time someone asking, "Do you if we support Linux?" We do, test to see does it work, but we don't do a bigger test on this stuff, so we can't really guarantee that it will work correctly. From a audio quality standpoint, there should not be a huge difference because what we essentially the most critical point in the audio quality chain, you can say. So if we have the audio chain of a PC gamer, let's say that, then you have some sort of audio being played in a game that is shipped to Windows, that is shipped to some sort of hardware, and then it's played in an analog headset. A little bit simplified. And and the most critical area here is when you have the digital signal, so that's the ones and zeros, and want to transform that into a signal that can be played in the headsets. And regardless of if you're on Windows or Linux, they will, I assume, only deliver a digital signal, and there will be some component, some DACS somewhere transforming that into analog. So my how do you say? I would guess that it would be comparable in terms of audio, without being really in the know about it, or an expert on that level with Linux.
Okay. Then this last question from Breaking Dimes, I'm going to partially answer this then and ask you a question at the end of it.
Hmm.
Um, so he asks, when testing a headphone, does one audio solution make a vast difference in the results? And the first thing I would say to you, Breaking Dimes, is if you're comparing audio solutions, you need to compare them on the same sound source. Because when you compare them on different sound sources, you're not going to get a fair comparison. You're trying to look for something that's a fair comparison. But that being said, Andreas, the sound source is going to make a difference if the amp isn't powerful enough, correct?
Yes, that could make a significant difference. Yeah.
So you want to make sure you're going to have a sound source that's got a really good amp on it. That's
Y-
going to be the key. You want that onboard sound solution or external. You want something that can push it at the level it needs to
Yeah,
push.
and then I mean good, but also make sure it's balanced. Now you talked about impedance before, and ohms, and you know that it's just important that the amp you have and the headset you have are somewhat compatible. Don't take like a 500 ohm headset and plug into an onboard DAC, because
No,
that will go wrong. Today most headsets are around, I would say, between 20 or 50 ohms and will do with most things. But you can't jump into a like a strange headset somewhere with with a very high ohms, and then you need to be a little bit careful what kind of amp you use if you want to get a good signal. That's for sure.
Well, you've
And then
got
I want to say one thing is because the audio source, but also actually what you play is extremely important.
yes.
Because if and I've noticed this with a lot of in a lot of these go to someone who really want to show you how good an audio sounds. They'll play some a little bit obscure acoustical music that you've never heard before, and that's fine because it's like, oh, this sounds great. I can hear the guitar strings and stuff like that. But the truth is, if you really want to judge something on how good it sounds, pick something like to the bottom of your heart how it sounds. For me, it's a certain Beatles song. I've listened to them my whole life. I know how it's supposed to sound. So pick something that's really familiar to you when you're listening to trying to judge the quality of something, because otherwise you're just you're judging on a song you don't know, and then whatever quality it's putting on that. So that's I would say that's also an important note.
Okay, we're going to give you one last question from the audience if somebody posts one, and before they do, I've got one last one for you. Can you tell us about anything coming up in the future from EPOS?
I would say that
We're going to make Poppy, by the way, she's holding her whip now. She's ready.
yeah, no, but of course I can't tell you what kind of launches and product launches and stuff like that we have. I can tell you what kind of dreams we have, and then you can guess yourself where we're going. But when it comes to, for example, something like virtual surround sound, I don't know a lot of people know this, but all virtual surround sound algorithms out there, take it, be it Dolby, DTS. I think Razer has one. I think Razer has two now. Actually, they have the THX also. Steel Series has one. There's all of them have different surround sound algorithms, and what they essentially are, and I'm a little bit simplifying here, but they are a description of a certain average person and how that person listens to audio, because that's how you do it.
Okay.
And then you say, okay, that this average guy with an average head shape and average ears will probably work on most people. That's been the idea for 5 or 10 years right now. We are looking into what actually happens if we say that average guy is not good enough for representing surround sound for everybody. So looking into something that can be a little bit more personalized surround sound, that could be something we're looking into. That is also something I expect is going to be a big part, not related to us, but when I hear the Sony PS5 3D audio, some of the stuff they're talking about, it does sound vaguely familiar to what I do in on a daily basis at the office. So it seems like more are taking that route.
Okay. I'm going to try to squeeze one more question in then real quick. Anything possibly in product-wise new by the holiday season?
That is a little bit still undecided.
Okay.
But
that's a fair question.
I
That's
can
a fair answer.
neither confirm or deny it.
Well, if it is, I'll be looking forward to it. Guys.
Well, one thing is sure, we'll definitely tell about it if it happens. So we won't be quiet about it.
I would hope you would announce it. Yeah, we'd be excited about that. And Andreas, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you for having me.
All right, gang. This has been Andreas from EPOS. If you're looking for gaming headsets, I'm a big fan. I'll freely admit it. And I love their products, and these are what I use every day. In fact, the entire interview you just listened to from me and Andreas both was with EPOS headsets and microphones. So, yeah, speaking of which one are you on?
I'm on the GSP 670.
Okay. Ooh, the nice wireless one.
I am, but I'm in like a moving disorder. We're redoing the kitchen, so I can't find the dongle. So yes, I'm on the nice wireless one, and I'm on a USB cord. So just
okay, and I'm on my Game Zeros right now.
Excellent.
Fine so there we go, guys. If you want to hear what the mic quality sounds like, you just heard it. All right, thanks everybody for coming out. This will be posted on the SAPPHIRE YouTube channel later, and when it's made available, we'll make sure the folks at EPOS have it so they can post it around as well. Again, thank you, Andreas, for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys all have a good weekend. We'll talk later. Bye. 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 Bye.